Hey folks, Joe DeSanto here. In this video, I am going to talk about the 4 different ways you can get your tax return done. And by that, I mean the 4 different approaches and professionals you can work with to get your tax return done. So I will see you in the video. I'm Joe DeSanto, by the way. I'm an independent CFO and business consultant. I actually spent most of my career in Los Angeles building a few multi-million-dollar businesses, and I've since semi-retired, and now I help other businesses and individuals manage their money and plan better for their future. So if you're interested in small business, personal finance, and real estate advice, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks. All right, welcome back. So I wanted to do a video here to explain the differences between tax preparers. A lot of people pretty much only understand the difference between tax preparers based on the amount that they're paying them. And oftentimes people go at the least expensive option first, not knowing that that option might be limited in both education, experience, and ability to help them in the case of an audit. So I wanted to do a video to explain the differences. Well, the first way you can do your taxes is yourself. You can do your own tax return. You can fill out the forms. The IRS even has an online tool, so you don't actually have to download and print the forms and fill them out that way, though you can do it that way. You can sign the forms. You can use some tables on the IRS website to generate a tax due. You can send in the signed return with the tax due and just take care of it yourself, right? So that is one way to go, and obviously the cheapest way. Now, the second version of that is using something like TurboTax. TurboTax is software that kind of would replace, the IRS online tool, but you do the tax return yourself. You sign your own tax return, but you fill in information in kind of a question and answer form into TurboTax. TurboTax translates that information into your 1040, tax return form, and also helps you electronically file it and electronically pay the tax. And that, I think TurboTax might cost $100, $150 depending on if you have to do a state return and business return and so on. So that's another way to do it yourself. Now, something like H&R Block also offers a do-it-yourself TurboTax-esque version of doing your tax return, but then they bump it up a notch and give you a person to work with. So now we're going to get into the category of people you work with to help you prepare your taxes. And I'm gonna come back to H&R Block because I want to explain the distinction of the types of people you work with. So there's about 3 levels of tax preparing professionals, and maybe a couple variations in between. But number one would be just the registered tax preparer. So someone can help you prepare and file your tax return if they've gone to the IRS and they've taken the basic registered tax preparer exam. They don't need to know anything about accounting. They don't have to have gone to school for accounting. They could have gone to school to be a hairdresser, and they can go take that test and help you do your taxes. Now, that might be perfectly fine, and they might be great at helping you prepare basic taxes, but because they weren't educated in tax law and so on, they can only take you so far. Now, that person also cannot represent you in an audit, so if something happens with your return or it gets scrutinized by the IRS, you can't go to that registered tax preparer and say, I need you to help and talk to the IRS for me. They can't do that. Now, there is actually one step up above that. There's an additional test that someone can take. I think it's called like the seasonal tax preparer exam. And if you do that, you basically are like a registered tax preparer plus, and you then can help your clients with some IRS related issues, but it's pretty limited to the degree to which you can help them, and you can't represent them in an audit. Naturally, a registered tax preparer is going to be the next least expensive way to go. So if you're not comfortable doing your tax return yourself, but it's quite simple, meaning you don't own a business, you don't own real estate, you just have a regular like W-2 job, maybe college, maybe early 20s, and it's quite simple. You could work with a registered tax preparer. Now back to H&R Block. H&R Block is like the franchisization of tax preparation. And oftentimes when you go there, while you are working with a person, you're likely working with essentially what's called an uncredentialed registered tax preparer. They aren't necessarily well educated in taxes. They know enough to get you through the basic return, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to help you in an audit either. So a lot of times if you're going and working with a person but it's very inexpensive, they're likely just a registered tax preparer. Of course, you should ask and confirm this. I've found that many people that I've worked with don't know. They just think they're getting a great deal, but they're working with a CPA, but they're actually not. So if you want, if your tax return is complicated and you're going to want help if you get audited, you want to be working with the next levels up. And those are, the next level up is enrolled agent. Enrolled agent is someone who probably likely went to school for accounting and is more educated and seasoned, but they don't necessarily have to have gone to school for accounting. But they have taken a more intensive and extensive exam with the IRS, and the IRS has deemed them a higher quality or more upper level tax preparer. Enrolled agents can represent you in an audit, and that is a major distinction. So I usually recommend anyone that, clients of mine that own a business or real estate or whatever, and their tax return's a little bit complicated, they want to work at least with an enrolled agent. That way, if something comes up, they have their tax preparer to turn to for help, guidance, assistance, and so on. And that enrolled agent can actually interface with the IRS on your behalf. I believe the enrolled agent also may have to do some level of continuing education to maintain their credential. The next level up and sort of top tier of tax preparers is the CPA, or Certified Public Accountant. Now, the certified public accountant most certainly has gone to school, college for accounting, but also they have to go take their state-based licensing exam and pass that, much like a lawyer has to go pass the bar. And then they have to renew that licensing probably annually. It depends on the state, and when renewing it, have to do some level of continuing education to keep up with current tax law. The certified public accountant is going to be the most knowledgeable, generally the most knowledgeable, the most seasoned, and deal with the more complicated tax returns, usually for businesses, higher, income and net worth individuals that own a lot of real estate or investments and have a lot of nuance in their deductions and so on. CPAs, though, are, of course, the most expensive in the tax preparation game. So depending on your situation, you might not want to pay, that much. To give you an example of pricing, clients I know that worked with down to registered tax preparers through CPAs, the range for the cost of a personal tax return can be anywhere as low as $300 on the registered tax preparer front, all the way up to $1,500, $2,000 for the personal tax return, depending on how many schedules, deductions, real estate, and all these things you have. Honestly, it could even go higher if you have far more complicated things. The cost of the business return in that range probably goes on the low end from $500 with the registered tax preparer, all the way up to $2,000 to $3,000 minimally with the CPA, and of course can go up from there depending on the complexity and all that's going on in the return. I think that the main distinction is having that assistance and IRS interfacing in the case of an audit is, the thing you probably want to weigh the most. Now, I'll add one more professional to this, even though I'm going beyond four now, is the tax attorney. Now, tax attorneys probably are registered and qualified to do your tax returns for you, but they're also attorneys. Generally, tax attorneys aren't in the tax preparation game. You call on them more when you have a more significant tax problem, usually significant back taxes, potentially the threat of, tax-related criminal charges and things like that. And you need someone that is both licensed in the legal sense and in the tax sense to represent you both with the IRS and or possibly in court. A CPA can't represent you in court, but a tax attorney can. So I think most people aren't ever going to be dealing with a tax attorney. It's probably very certain limited circumstances, but they are yet another level of professional you might deal with. So pick your tax professional wisely. Definitely get the expertise that you need, but always remember this. There is no replacement for your own advocacy. I think CPAs and tax attorneys, everybody is generally well intentioned and they want to do a good job for their clients, but they don't always know everything. And certainly, CPAs and enrolled agents don't know everything about every area of tax, like real estate, like investments. A lot of them specialize. So, do your own reading, do your own research, read the books that I'm going to talk about in this later video, and bring ideas to your tax preparer and have a conversation with them. Go to them with prepared financials, engage with them, mine them for information, and don't be afraid to share suggestions about something you read or heard about on YouTube from me. I will close this by reminding you all I am not a licensed tax preparer myself, nor am I a CPA. So any information that I share is really food for thought and fodder for you to go to your tax professional with and potentially bring up as a talking point. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.